Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rediscovering Me TV. It's your girl, Nakia P. Super excited that you're here with me tonight and every week. Thank you for being consistent guests. I do appreciate it. Tonight, we will be talking about overcoming trauma. Okay, overcoming trauma. Now, if you know me and you follow me on social media, you know that I am big when it comes to mental health, when it comes to healing, and that's because, hey, your girl is in her own process healing as well. And, it may be a tough one, but I want to keep encouraging you and everyone else that, listen, even though I'm in the midst of my own process, overcoming is very possible. Okay. Overcoming that trauma is very possible. So, listen, before we get started, before we bring on our special guest, let me remind you what this show is all about. Okay. So, Rediscovering Me TV is an empowerment show for women, all right, to empower women to rediscover ourselves. Okay. Now, for some of us, we may just be discovering ourselves for the first time, and that's okay. Okay. That is okay. So, we empower you to rediscover yourselves in so many ways. I speak heavenly, on mental health and healing and wellness, but we're also going to have people come on and talk about, finances and, living fully and authentically in yourself. So I want to make sure that you are following us on social media, Ruach Life Media, on our Facebook and on all of our social medias. Okay. Ruach Life Media. There it is, right there. So make sure that you follow us, make sure that you join in. So, guys, listen, when it comes to trauma, your girl is, I can say that, hey, I've been there, still dealing with it, but we're going to get through this, right? We're going to talk about overcoming trauma, what trauma is, and how and what ways that we can overcome it. We have a beautiful special guest with us today, Miss Valerie Burell. We're going to bring her on and allow her to introduce herself, and then we're going to get started. Miss Valerie, how are you, love?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us. Yes,
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
yes, ma'am. So go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
In a little bit, I will tell. My name is Valerie Burell. I am a licensed clinical pastoral counselor. I am certified in temperament counseling. I am owner of Empower Me Coaching and Counseling located in Bluefield, West Virginia, where I see clients virtually and face to face. With virtual clients, I do have clients all over the United States that I serve in the capacity of dealing with trauma, temperament, especially working with couples, premarital couples, and those who are having challenges. I also work with families and organizations that aid them in understanding why certain people are functioning the way they're functioning on the job. So I love what I do. I am happily married to Benny Burrell. We are parents to 6 adult children and 12 grandchildren, and I love my life.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. I love it. So, Valerie, tell us, in your definition, explain to us what is trauma.
Certainly, trauma can be defined in so many different ways, but it really is when something that's unplanned approaches. It comes into your life, it overwhelms you, it takes away your ability to cope, where you feel shaken, you feel tossed, you feel broken. It causes intense anxiety, and it just really throws you off your game. And because we understand that trauma can happen in so many different ways, I want you to understand that it's important that you pay attention to what's going on in your life. Trauma can happen because of loss, and many people have experienced loss during COVID. This this move, this endemic. Um, Trauma can happen in a divorce. It can happen in a miscarriage. It can happen in loss of a job. It can happen in relocation. It can happen in so many ways. I think sometimes when we hear the term trauma and people look at understanding trauma, they want to minimize their experience to think, well, this really is not that traumatic. But what you're not seeing is that you're starting to live some of the symptoms that go along with the traumatic experience. I can tell you for myself, much like you, my sister, trauma has knocked on my door because trauma does not discriminate. It will hit everybody, every shape, size, color, financial realm. It does not matter. Trauma can hit us all. And for me, I've experienced trauma in abandonment. I've experienced trauma from sexual assault. I've experienced trauma for how I raise my kids. Like I'm telling you, there's so many things that can affect us and traumatize us. We must be keenly aware of what we're feeling. Nakia made mention of our emotional health, our mental health. It is of utmost importance in this hour that we're paying attention not just to ourselves, but we're paying attention to those around us. One segment that I'm particularly interested in watching now are our young people and how they're dealing with trauma, with many of them being out of school and having to use virtual education means. They're being traumatized because they don't know how to function. And when they don't know how to function, they don't know how to fix it. And when they come to us as parents, grandparents, caregivers, we don't have all the answers. And because of it, they are feeling some kind of way. So again, trauma can manifest in a lot of different ways, and it's up to us as individuals to pay attention and then offer them stages to get through what they feel.
I love that. I love that because I think it's absolutely important that, we teach our young ones, how to deal with trauma because, for some of us, I can say that I wasn't taught how to deal with trauma, not the way that I needed to be taught. So many times we teach based off of our own experiences, off of our own, the way that we had to go through life. And I think that it's important for that, which is why I do speak so highly on mental health and things like that, because I know how trauma can affect you.
Absolutely.
It sometimes is not as easy as some may describe it. It's not sunshine and rainbows every day. Trauma can be tough. it can
Yeah.
it can be hard, and everything that comes with that trauma, it's a lot to carry. So Miss Valerie, can you tell us what are some ways that we can acknowledge that we're dealing with trauma before we go any further?
Yeah, but and before we even get there, I want to just share when you said that we weren't taught to deal with trauma. That's so true. And as a woman of color, I can share that as a child, as a teen, as a young woman, I was not taught or encouraged to even identify trauma. I was taught to suck it up, whether it's cultural, environmental, religious, whatever. We were not taught to address our issues. And that's an issue in and of itself. We have to become keenly aware of what we're feeling. I don't know why it's been that we are afraid of our feelings. We're afraid to expect to release our emotions if they're not positive. How many times have we been told to put on the brave face, to suck it up, to just lift your head and push your shoulders back and keep going? Don't acknowledge that this happened. Don't tell a soul. We were taught this way to suppress those things that would indicate that we've been traumatized. And what did that trauma turn into? It turned into eating disorders. It turned into uh, self-cutting. It turned into turning to substances and drugs. It turned into a lot of different things because we didn't have the proper coping mechanisms to handle what we were suppressing. Remember, I said trauma, it will shock you, it will confuse you, it will cause intense anxiety because you're not able to cope with this unexpected situation. So, one thing that you can do if you're feeling like if you're in a place right now and you're feeling like, I don't know what to do. Like, this does not feel right to me. I just don't know what to do. We've got to understand what's taken place. So when we look at it, we're looking for stabilization and safety. We're looking for a stage that's called mourning and remembrance. And then we're looking at a stage that's called integration and reconnection. When we start feeling a certain kind of way and we see ourselves withdrawing, if there's been a sexual assault, if you've been traumatized sexually and you're around the person that did this to you, you'll start finding yourself wanting to withdraw, not desiring to be around a lot of people out of fear. Fear comes in and it begins to torment you. Yes, it will torment you. It will have you in a space and place where you're just shut away. You're not talking, you're not communicating, you're not doing anything because you don't want to relive what took place, and then you don't want to talk about it. When you're finding yourself withdrawing, when you're finding yourself feeling like you're being shut in and shut down, that's when you need to start seeking help. It's another thing that I encourage you to do. Ask for help. When you think that you're experiencing trauma, and there's no little trauma and no big trauma. Trauma is trauma. If you've experienced a situation that has caused you to feel unsettling, seek help. I hope that answered the question, Nakia, because I could go on and on. I
It
could
it
go on
really
and on.
did. It really did because and I'm loving this because you are so right. You know, we have become conditioned based off of what we have been taught.
Yeah,
And because of that, you know, we see this world the way it is now with everything that's going on. The last 2, maybe 3 years, it's been tough on everybody. You know
absolutely.
what I'm saying? Like, I'm not discounting previous years. I know for a fact the whole world right now, we've been going through for the last few years, and we've had a lot of loss. We've had so many things that have been going on, and we have become conditioned, like you say, to just suck it up, keep moving, and we see that as a sign of strength. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, one thing that I had to learn is, baby, strength is not about how much you can carry, because eventually, with all the blocks on your back, you will break. You will break. And I had to get to a point where it was like, okay, girl, you need some help, and that's okay. Not to look bad or not to down myself, but just to say, you know what? You need help. You need to talk to somebody because you're holding years and years and years and years of trauma in, because we're not taught to go to therapy. We're not taught to handle our issues. We're not taught to speak out on our feelings. You know, um, we see on social media when people speak out about their feelings, sometimes it seems like it's a sign of weakness, like they're weak, they can't handle. And sometimes people are just, that's their cry for help. They
It
just want a
is.
listening ear. So, Miss Valerie, I know that you said that you've experienced, you know, your situations of trauma. And if you don't mind, if you can share just a little bit with us about that and what you did to get through that process of dealing with that trauma.
So my first experience with really understanding, acknowledging trauma, happened in my preteen years when I was raped by an extended family member. That was like the first one. But once I understood, and when that happened, I suppressed it, right? Because I couldn't go home and tell my mama what just happened because it would be my fault. So I experienced that trauma, and that caused me to withdraw. Um, it sent me on a destructive path because here I was trusting someone to help me, and in turn, they abused me. What that also did is it reawakened a situation that happened to me as a child. After that happened, I remember being a little one in the care of a loved one, and I was molested. It became so very vivid. And I was like, what else is there in me? What else has happened? I was almost afraid to tap into my reality. I was afraid to tap into my truth. And so, like many people, when that occurred as a preteen, I retreated. I withdrew. I didn't share my truth. I didn't share my reality. And it made it so very painful for myself and those who were attempting to have a relationship with me. They went through hell with me because I was damaged goods. And I had not come to a realization about how to deal with it. I was in my God 40s before I really began to even talk about what took place in my life as a preteen, what happened to me. I can recall seeing the individual that did this to me. And when I would see them, I would drop my head as though I'd done something wrong. I was feeling fear. I was feeling guilt. I was still feeling like this was my problem, but it wasn't. I can't even tell you what really jarred me, what woke me up and said, hey, look, get it together because you're blaming yourself for something that's not your fault. Get your strength back. And one day I did. I got my strength back. And this individual had a daughter. And my prayer was, don't let what happened to me happen to his daughter. It gave me a strength. I had to forgive, and that was tough. Forgave myself first because I'd walked around blaming myself for allowing this to happen. I shouldn't have trusted him. I should have just walked. I shouldn't have done it. But it wasn't that I had done anything wrong. I was in a space and place where I was actively seeking help, trusting that because they were an extended family member, that the help would be there, and it wasn't. So I had to forgive myself after being secluded for so many years in so many different ways. Forgave him, forgave myself, and then at that time began my healing journey. Was it easy? No. Took years? Yes. Because again, I was inflicting pain on other people who genuinely wanted to love me, who genuinely wanted to care for me. But because I had been hurt, I wasn't trusting enough. I didn't. I just didn't know what to do with people who said, oh, let me. And it also turned me into a monster sort of person when it came to relationships because my motto was I'm going to get you before you get me, and I don't even know if anybody was out to get me, but because I had been traumatized and I hadn't healed, I was always on the offense. I'm going to take care of me. I don't care if it hurts you or not. I'm going to take care of me. So that was my first real traumatic experience that even awakened another trauma that I had faced earlier on in my life. And it began to take me on this journey of where do I go from now? Where do I go from here? And how do I heal?
Mm, that's good. That's good. And I like what you said when you said that, this awakened a new trauma for you, that something that you didn't even realize that had happened at first. And those things happen because we can suppress these things. Now that I can say that now that, I'm doing therapy, it kind of shocked me, just by my therapist asking questions. And I was like, wait a minute now, wait a minute.
What you
Wait a
say?
minute, what
Wait a
you
minute.
mean? But it taught me that, you got to look at yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to give yourself grace. And that is something that's not an easy process either, because we become so accustomed to blaming ourselves for every situation, for suppressing everything that happens, for not talking, and the first person we're ready to blame is ourselves.
Absolutely.
So forgiving ourselves and then being graceful and kind to ourselves and loving ourselves, that's a whole nother process. I don't think that some people really understand the different processes that you go through when you're on your path to healing. I always say that there's just no one path. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all heal differently. I can't tell nobody how to heal because I don't know what you've been through. But
Right.
I can say that even though you're on one process, I'm quite sure there's another one, because there's so much work that we have to do. And each day, it gives us an opportunity to be kinder to ourselves, to love ourselves, to forgive ourselves, and even forgive those people that may have caused that trauma. What was that process like for you, as far as forgiving yourself and learning how to love yourself again and trust yourself as you started to move forward?
Yeah. So. That's a real good question. As a therapist, as a counselor, and aiding people in trauma, when I look at the stages, the first one being stabilization and safety. I also think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how you go up the scale and making sure that certain things are in place to cope and manage whatever it is you're feeling. For me, I was not stable. Stabilization took years. It literally took years. Safety, I sort of grabbed the reins because from that point forward, I was very mindful and intentional about the circles that I was in, the places that I was going, the people that I was with. I had a very small circle that I trusted, and anything outside of that did not get my full attention or my activity. The biggest thing for me was being stable because my mind wasn't stable, because I wasn't healed. Stabilization was a challenge because I noticed that there were times that certain things, even certain voices, would trigger the thought of, oh, wait a minute, you got to back up. You got to go away. Now go inside. Like I even had struggles going to family cookouts and the person was there, right? Can you imagine? You have to go there and act like you don't see, you don't know, you don't feel, but all the time you do. And you have to smile. And when they said, go fix them a plate, you go fix them a plate and take them a drink and you take them a drink. And the whole time there's this instability that's taking place in your emotions where you're thinking, is he looking at me? Does he want to do it again? Or is he looking at another young person in the room? Like, what is going on? So it took a lot of time for me to get to that space and place of stabilization where I was able to say, you know what? I'm going to stand on my feet. I'm going to square up. I'm going to have the conversation. I'm not going to back down anymore because I am continuing to imprison myself, and he does not care. He's not giving any thought to it. And I share that with us as we're going through the process of overcoming trauma. You have to understand that most of the time the person or thing that traumatized you has moved on. We're keeping ourselves imprisoned by not allowing ourselves to become stable in our thinking and stable in our emotions, even stable in what we're confessing. I know a lot of people who have experienced trauma and they want to stay right there in it. Oh, I'm a victim. Oh, I'm a victim. It was an experience, it happened. But let's move from that victim's mentality to being stable, to understanding that it was a moment, it was an experience, it's now a part of my history, and I'm going to move forward and I'm going to succeed in whatever I put my heart and mind to, according to God's intent for my life. I am stable. So that was the hardest challenge for me. Safety, I could handle because I was going to make sure that I was in a safe place. Safe place was always at the top of the list. Oh, this doesn't look safe. I'm not going. But stabilization was a challenge for me for many years.
Okay. Okay, I respect that, and I like that and I'm just gonna say this because I'm very open and things on my platforms. I love how you said that it took time. It took time, and I say that because sometimes I'm just gonna be honest. There's moments where I'll be like, please tell me what prayers you praying, because people be like instantly. And I'm like, what prayers are you praying? Like, tell me something, because we want that instantly. But I've learned that sometimes we don't tell the full thing. We want people to, see that it's pretty and graceful and beautiful on the other side. But people also need to be fully aware that, hey, these dark times, they're tough and they're hard, but you can get through them. You can get through them. And so I'm just going to say, I appreciate that you said that it took time and that you understood that it was a process, because I do have troubles with that. Because I'd be like, I need to know what prayers people be praying.
Well, one thing that we have to understand with that, Nakia, is that because trauma affects all of us differently, I believe in my experience and others that have been sexually traumatized, we don't get over that quite as easy as the trauma of having to relocate or the trauma of losing a job. Um, it's just different when there's been an intimate encounter. It does something, especially when somebody has violated you sexually, like they became a part of you. And it's not like you can go in and take your shower and wash it off. I don't care what kind of soap you use. You can use Dawn or Dove. It don't even matter. It's not going to wash it away. And then there are the mental images that you constantly have, that when you close your eyes you see it, or you rub up against somebody and you feel it, or you smell a certain cologne and it triggers, ooh, that's what he smelled like. And so because there's so many things connected to sexual trauma specifically, it's not like I can just brush it off. Oh, yeah, it just happened, whatever. It's not that easy. So when you're having that, and then you're faced with a physical abuse trauma where you relive those moments, it's not as easy to get over as it is, I lost my job, woe is me. Well, yeah, and I'm not making light of this, please understand, because there is trauma that people have when they lose their jobs. But depending on why you lose your job, you can fill out a form and start getting compensated. You can send a resume to a buddy and you can get hired. You have to make some changes, but the traumatic experience may not linger as long as someone that experienced a physical trauma. So, yeah, it does take time, and it takes processes, and it takes us knowing our own truth. Because there are times that people say, I'm over it, I'm done, I'm healed. Okay, cool. That's what you say. Let me bring the source of your trauma into the room. No, I don't want that. Oh, but you said you were over it. Let's confront it face to face. Oh, oh, so you're not over it. That's what's important. Don't try to just sugarcoat it and pass it off like you're okay if you're not okay. And one of our conversations, I think it was Tuesday, with a grief group, and we were just talking about managing emotions and things of that nature. We shared, it's okay not to be okay. You can tell somebody, no, I'm not okay with that. No, this is not working for me. It's okay not to be okay. But again, we're being constantly taught to be okay. Brush it to the side and act like everything is all right. But that's not healthy, y'all. It's not healthy. And if we're constantly suppressing the things that are causing pain to us, what's going to happen when it erupts? What's going to happen when you've reached the limit where you don't have space to suppress anything else? What happens then? And we know that if you've been traumatized and you're feeling anxiety and you're feeling depression, a lot of times other things come into the picture, other coping mechanisms that aren't healthy. For me, one of my coping mechanisms was eating. I became an emotional eater. That whenever things started to bother me or perplex me or made me feel uncomfortable, I went to food. There are others that go to drugs and alcohol, others that go to sex, others that go to gambling. There are a lot of different things that people do as a coping mechanism not to deal with the trauma that they faced or are currently facing. It's okay not to be okay. Hear me. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't feel good about that. I'm not comfortable there. That doesn't feel good to me. I would rather say those things, address what you're feeling, and then move from there. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Nikki, you got to. You just got to.
I love it. I do, because these are the things that we need to talk about. Like, these are the topics that people need to hear. Because I think, and this is just me, we need to come up with a whole new definition and meaning of strong. Because
Yes.
strong is not pushing it on the rug. I'm gonna put it like this. I'm 37. I'll be 38 next month. And when I
Youngster.
say your girl has held trauma from 8 years old of being molested and then going through different situations, I knew that I needed help because I was about to snap. You understand? Like, I felt like I was about to lose every marble, everything that was happening. I started having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I'm pacing back and forth, can't sleep. And before, when I had my last traumatic event, which was my assault,
Mhm.
my coping mechanisms was drugs.
Right.
It was completely drugs, because I was like, there ain't nothing else out here that's gonna make me escape from
Mhm.
dealing with this, and the fear of trying to get away, the fear of staying. So I was one that I coped with drugs and
Mhm.
got addicted to it and had to go through a whole nother process
Right.
to be healed and delivered from that. And I think that is so important that we understand that we don't have to be strong by hiding. Speaking up has been the best thing for me. It has been absolutely amazing, because now, and I mean, I'm not going to say like I'm completely there, because, I admit that your girl still got some rain and clouds over here. But one thing that I had to be honest with myself about was there was nobody out here that was going to come and save me. You see what I'm saying? It was a decision that I had to make for myself. And it had to be personal. And that's why I keep telling people, baby, this fight is personal. You got to make it personal, because you are fighting for yourself. You're
Absolutely.
fighting to save yourself. So speak your boundaries. If it's not comfortable, then it's not comfortable. If it's not something that you want to do, it's not something you want to do. I'm good at staying away from people. I'm good at it. I'll be like, nah, I'm good. Y'all just go ahead and do what you do. But I think that people need to be informed
Mhm.
about these things, setting boundaries, learning that you don't have to be okay every day. We don't have to uphold this image. We really don't. And I think once you get into a space where you're not concerned about what people say, you know what I'm saying, that you're living for you, you're fighting for you, and you're doing what you need to do, that's the best choice ever. Miss Valerie, I'm going to ask you this. um, Now, for you, and I'm going to say this because I know that sometimes, because of how we were raised, okay,
Mhm.
and I can say this also as a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm born in the church, raised in the church, been engaged to pastors. My whole family is nothing but pastors. Okay, I have nothing but ministry around me. I growing up, for me, therapy was just, you don't do, you don't do. And as I began therapy, it was also something that still wasn't looked at as a good thing, because some people made it look like I was going against religion. You see what I'm saying? Or going against certain things. So for you, Miss Valerie, as you know, for what you do in your job and also a believer, can you please explain to us how we can still believe and still seek help and go from there?
Absolutely. So, yeah, um, stop being so religious and start forming a relationship. The one thing that I love, and she said it, I'm an ordained apostolic leader. Um, I teach the word, I preach the word, I do that. But I was able to recognize in my own life the need for counseling. And when I began to step into that role and equip myself to be able to aid people with the Word of God, the truth of the Word of God, being led by the Spirit of God that dwells on the inside of me, and having knowledge about theory and strategy that can help people get over their discomfort, then I became an advocate for counseling. I believe that in this hour, it is so very important that people who have challenges are not just running to the preacher and the deacons and telling them all their business so they can get a new sermon if they're not equipped to counsel. Hey, we're live. I said it. If you're not equipped, it's a thing called referral. Refer them to somebody that is equipped to help them. Um, Again, in a conversation with a group that I'm with on Tuesdays, a grief group. We're now talking about movements where we are discussing mental health in the church because it is much needed. Dr. Brian Jones, who is now putting together a curriculum for Christian psychotherapy to equip those who are in the counseling field, Christian counseling field, to aid in better equipping us as Christian counselors to meet the needs of individuals that need care. I love the Lord. I wouldn't change anything about my relationship with my Father, with my big brother Jesus, and with Holy Spirit that dwells on the inside. I won't change that for anything. But I know that a hibahasha kamadasa ain't gonna stop me from having pain. It's not. You can lay hands on me, you can pray, you can oil me down, you can do all those things. It's good. But you better come with some strategy that's going to help me outside of the word. The word is good. Don't get me wrong. But therapy, counseling, and Jesus go together real well. They do.
I love it. I love it. I'm just that's all I'm gonna say. I love it. And I had someone, comment on my post, and they was like, "Listen, spiritual counseling, pastoral counseling is not the same as mental health counseling, and we gotta kind of be able to understand that if they are not licensed in that area, not taking away from anybody counseling, not saying to take away from anybody's faith. That's not me, but we also have to realize that there's a certain time and a place for
Yeah,
everything.
because ordination does not mean license to counsel. It just means that you're ordained by your specific body to preach the gospel, to do a wedding, and to commit somebody to a grave. That's what your ordination does in that religious sect. That's what that does. But it does not equip you for the challenges that many are facing behind church walls. And it is my desire, even with me, I just opened up my practice here in West Virginia back in January. I had my grand opening. And I was so very hopeful that, pastors and ministry leaders would be like, yay, we're glad you're here. Let's partner together. Let's get these people healed in Jesus' name. Let's go forward. That was my prayer. And I'm still praying that prayer. Hallelujah. I'm still praying that prayer. But I want also for ministry leaders to understand that when people come in, serving in the capacity of Christian counselors, licensed and certified temperament counselors, family and marriage counselors. They are not coming to take your members. They are not coming to take your money. But what we desire to do is to aid you in taking care of the flock. I mean, if you're a shepherd and you got sheep and the sheep get sick, you call the vet. What? You call the vet, right? Yeah, and I'm not calling your people sheep. Well, they are your sheep, but come on, call the ones that are licensed, that are called, that are anointed to do the work to aid them and being the best that they can be, which will ultimately make your life as their spiritual leader easier.
That is good. That's good. That's good. And I think we need that. We need mental health professionals in churches. We need more of them in schools. We need more of them that go to, scenes with police. We need more of that. And these are discussions that need to be had. And I get it. And I'm going to say this to all my listeners out there, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, like, we get it. It's hard to open up about your feelings sometimes. Trust your girl, I be. tripping and struggling with that every now and then. But it feels so much better when you
Freeing.
get it out. It really does. And I can say there are days that your girl don't want to get up out of bed. There are days that I be struggling. Yesterday I had therapy, and after therapy, I was like, "Girl, you can bounce from this day. Like you got this thing. It was a struggle yesterday morning, but girl, you got this." And I think that is so empowering to be able to speak up and speak out. You know, um, we see so many shirts and t-shirts. I have a shirt for domestic violence, and it says, my life matters, so I spoke out. To me, it's the same thing when it comes to trauma, when it comes to mental health. My life matters. So instead of me keeping my mouth shut and trying to fight this thing through, I'm gonna speak up because I matter. My life matters. My feelings matter. And I told people, I said something today. I was like, I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm not gonna be out here turning cheeks for nobody else. Like, you're not gonna keep hurting me, and I just turn the other cheek and allow you. No, baby, you're gonna stay where you at. You're gonna stay where you at. Like, we gotta get out of it's okay. You know what I'm saying? People can do this to me, and it's okay. I can take it. I'm strong. Nobody's saying that you're not strong. But every strong table, no matter how strong it is, if you keep weighing that thing, you keep putting more and more weight, it will break. And we don't want to break. I don't want to break, but we don't want to break. So opening our mouth, talking and speaking is beautiful. Okay? It is beautiful. Miss
I
Valerie.
want to, if
Oh,
I
go ahead.
could,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, love.
when you talked about the table being strong, the table surface in and of itself is just a surface. But every table has a base, whether it's a round base in the center or whether it's legs that come from the sides and the corners. A table is not a table if it doesn't have foundation. Otherwise, it's just a plane. When we say to you, who those of you who have faced trauma or experiencing trauma in this moment, it's okay to have support. It's actually necessary to have support in being able to manage this. She talked about that table, but I need you to see it. A table does not become a table until it has something to hold it up. You're going to be a you're going to be victim as a plane. But when you get someone under you to support you, to uphold you, to go along with you, to keep you stable and safe, then you can overcome. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I love what you said about the table.
Oh, thank you, love. And I love how you demonstrate that, because we need that support. Now, I'm gonna say this, Miss Valerie. I'm gonna ask you this. I was gonna ask you another question, but you mentioned support, so I do have to ask you this, because I've noticed with the communities and people that I'm talking to now, people that are still in the midst of their process, we are still trying to overcome this trauma. Sometimes support is hard to get because some people do not understand where we are. So, what would you say as far as making sure or finding different ways that we can find support for people that are looking for it?
There are a lot of different ways. I mean, if you go to psychology today, um, they have a search engine where you can find a counselor. And I would recommend that you vet a counselor as you would with anything. Everybody's techniques are not the same. I have a t shirt that says, I'm not for everybody. I recognize that and I'm okay with that. In my counseling practice, I am empathetic, but I also, if you are committing to spending time with me, then we are going to spend time together and work towards moving forward in what it is you've been called to do. Vet them, seek them out. You can go to search engines, you can go to um, domestic violence sites, a lot of different places that you can find information about counselors. If you're specifically looking for someone that's a believer, a Christian counselor, you can go to the National Christian Counseling Association and do a search to look for Christian counselors who have experience in working with trauma. There are a lot of counselors out there and more that are emerging because we see the need. So I just recommend that you do the search, vet them. A lot of counselors like myself, I offer you a free 15 minutes that you can talk to me to see if I'm the right person to help you in getting to your next and understanding what you're going through. I may be, I may not be, but many of us offer that so that you can get to know us, hear a little bit about us, know what it is that we do to help you be your best.
Awesome, awesome. Miss Valerie, I want to say thank you so much. I have greatly enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, these are things that we need to talk about. And we want everyone, myself included, because your girl is still in there. We want to get through this process of trauma. We want to overcome it. We want to speak on it. We want to heal on it. Okay. So y'all know, if y'all following me, these are things that you're gonna hear. Okay, these are things that you're going to hear, even while I'm in the midst of it, because we understand how it can be. You know, we can, I totally understand how it can be. All right. So, listen, I appreciate y'all for listening in. Miss Valerie, I'm going to give you the floor. Can you please tell us if you have any, encouraging words that you want to end out on? And please tell us how we can follow you, support you, and all of that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share. I want to just say to you that if you've dealt with trauma or if you're dealing with trauma, remember that there are going to be some stages that you go through: stabilization and safety. Make sure that you can get to a place and your therapist or counselor will help you in stabilizing your emotions so that you are not dealing with the constant anger, fear, or guilt. Those survival mechanisms, that you're able to manage those and move through those to be stable and safe. Also, we want you to, as you're moving to the next stage, which is mourning and remembrance, I want you to understand that you can review what trauma you went through, but you don't have to relive it. And sometimes that's a challenge. We constantly relive. We want you to get to a space and place where you're healed enough to review it, but not relive it. And then we want you to understand that this trauma that you faced, as you're trying to integrate it into your normal life, that it's a part of your history, whether it happened 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. We want you to get to a space and place that you're able to understand that this was not a defining moment, it was a moment. Painful though it may have been, it's just a moment. It will be a part of your history, but it will not define you. You are bigger and greater than your trauma. I hope this has helped. I am on Facebook, Valerie Burell. I am on most social media sites. I'd like for you to visit my website. That's empower me, the letter V is in victory.com, empowerme.com, where you can find out more about my services, my books, my speaking itineraries, and all things empowerment. It's Empower Me Coaching and Counseling. I am in Bluefield, West Virginia, offering face to face and virtual sessions to all who are seeking change.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much, Miss Valerie. I appreciate it. I appreciate this conversation. Please keep doing what you're doing, empowering our people to speak out, to overcome trauma, and to also handle and deal with our mental health. So thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. Listen, guys, I'm gonna make sure that we put Miss Valerie's information below this video. Okay. So listen, make sure that you're sharing it. All right, share it with your friends, share it with family, share it with whoever. Okay, if you know someone that is going through, share this video. Okay, because you never know. You never know. One thing that I like to say, and I got this from my therapist, is all you need to do is reach one person, and it starts a ripple effect. Just one, just one. You reach one, and that one will reach another, and then it goes from there. Okay, so Miss Valerie, again, thank you so much, love. I greatly appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. All right, guys. So listen, thank you for being here today. I greatly appreciate it. You already know. Make sure that you follow us on social media, Rock Life Media. Okay. All of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. and also LinkedIn as well. All right. Make sure that you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. I see y'all watching videos, but I need you to subscribe too. All right. So make sure that you do that. We will be here next Thursday again on Rediscovering Me TV with another guest as we continue talking about healing, mental health, wholeness, and beauty. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate it. Mwah. Y'all have a great evening, and I'll see you next Thursday on Rediscovering Me TV. Be blessed, guys.